Earth hung in space like a dying ember, wrapped in tentacles of living darkness. The shadow wraiths had covered the planet in a web of pure hunger, but they were not destroying it. They were using it as a gateway for something far worse. The Omega entity was taking shape in the space above Earth's North Pole. It was not a creature in any normal sense, but a void in reality itself. Where it existed, stars went out and hope died. It's using the harvested despair as an anchor, Dr. Wansik reported from his science station. 800 years of human suffering concentrated into one location, the perfect doorway for absolute darkness. Deho stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the horror unfold. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for the final battle. Millions of people who had been slaves just months ago were now ready to die for freedom. Captain, Arya spoke quietly in his mind. The Guardian Protocol link is ready, but I must warn you, connecting to every human consciousness in the galaxy will likely destroy your mind. How many humans are there now? Deho asked. Approximately 3 billion across all colonies and worlds. The number was staggering. Each one would add their courage and determination to the psychic network, but the feedback from so many minds might burn out Deho's brain completely. Young Ho approached with the latest tactical reports. All assault teams are in position, but Captain, the shadow wraiths are too thick around Earth. We can't get close enough to destroy the harvesting stations. Through the ship's windows they could see the battle beginning. Human fighters engaged, shadow wraiths in desperate combat. But conventional weapons had little effect on entities that existed partially outside normal space. On the planet's surface, ground teams led by Jin Wu and Tai Sung were fighting their way toward the main harvesting facility, in what used to be Seoul. But for every meter they advanced, the darkness pushed back harder. The Omega entity is almost fully manifested, Yunji warned from her engineering station. Once it stabilizes in our dimension, it will start consuming star systems, beginning with Earth. Sora's voice crackled over the communication system from her position, leading the space battle. We need that psychic link now, Captain. My ships can't hold them much longer. Deho closed his eyes and felt for the Guardian network built into his DNA. Every human in the galaxy carried the same genetic markers waiting to be activated. He just had to reach out and wake them all up at once. Begin the link, he told Arya. The connection started slowly. First, he felt the minds of the humans on his own ship. Their courage and determination flowed into him like warm light. Then it expanded to the other ships in the fleet. Young Ho gasped as he felt his mind suddenly connected to thousands of others. I can feel them. All of them. The network spread outward at light speed, jumping from ship to ship, from colony to colony. On New Gangwon, old Tae-sung smiled as he felt the connection activate. On the mining worlds, former slaves looked up from their work with new understanding. But the real miracle happened on Earth itself. In the harvesting stations where billions of humans had been kept in artificial despair, something extraordinary occurred. As the Guardian link reached them, their suffering transformed into defiance. The harvesting machines that had been feeding on human despair for 8 centuries suddenly had nothing to consume. Instead, they were overwhelmed by an explosion of hope and courage that overloaded their systems. The harvesting stations are shutting down, Minji reported with excitement. All of them. Everywhere. The effect on the shadow wraiths was immediate and dramatic. The entities that had been feeding on concentrated despair found themselves surrounded by its opposite. Waves of human determination and courage washed over them like poison. They began to dissolve, their forms becoming unstable as the very energy they needed to exist was replaced by something that burned them like acid. But the Omega entity was different. It was older and more powerful than the shadow wraiths, and it had almost finished manifesting in normal space. The loss of Earth's harvested despair slowed its arrival but did not stop it. Deho felt his mind expanding as more humans joined the network. 2 billion minds thinking as one, all focused on the same goal, protecting their species and their galaxy from absolute darkness. The psychic pressure was enormous. Blood ran from his nose and his vision began to blur. But he held on, channeling the combined will of humanity toward Earth. "Captain, your brain activity is approaching critical levels," Arya warned. "Not yet," Deho gasped. "I can feel them. Every human who ever lived, every human who ever will live. They're all connected now." On Earth's surface, something unprecedented happened. The humans trapped in the harvesting stations began to break free, not through physical strength, but through sheer force of will. The alien technology that had held them prisoner for generations simply stopped working. Kyung-min, the former collaborator who had served the Void Collective faithfully, felt the Guardian link activate in her mind. For the first time in decades, she remembered what it meant to be human. Without hesitation, she turned on the alien overseers who had been her masters. Using her administrative access, she began systematically destroying the harvesting equipment throughout Earth's main facility. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the humans she had helped enslave. "I forgot who I was, but I remember now." Her sacrifice bought precious time for the other humans to escape, but it cost her life as alien guards cut her down. Her last thought was of pride. She had chosen to die as a human rather than live as a slave. The Omega entity, sensing the loss of its anchor point, began to rage. Tentacles of pure darkness lashed out across space, reaching for the human fleet. But as they touched the ships, something unexpected happened. The darkness could not penetrate the psychic field generated by 3 billion human minds linked in unity. Each ship was surrounded by a barrier of pure courage and determination that the entity could not cross. He-Jin, the Void Collective war commander who had hunted Deho across the galaxy, watched the battle from her command ship with amazement. She had never understood why her people feared humans so much. Now she saw the truth. They don't just fight, she realized. They inspire each other to be better than they are. Making a decision that would have seemed impossible days earlier, He-Jin ordered her remaining forces to attack the Omega entity. It was a futile gesture. Their weapons could not harm something that existed outside normal space. But it was the right thing to do. The entity's tentacles crushed her ship and crew, but their sacrifice gave the humans the opening they needed. Jin-Woo and Tae-Sung reached Earth's main harvesting facility and began the final shutdown sequence. As the last harvesting station went offline, the Omega entity lost its anchor to reality. Without the concentrated despair to hold it in normal space, it began to fade back into the dark dimension where it belonged, but it did not go quietly. As it retreated, it sent out a psychic scream of rage and hunger that echoed across the galaxy. The message was clear. It would return someday, and it would remember what humanity had done. Deho collapsed on his ship's bridge as the Guardian link finally overloaded his enhanced brain. But he was smiling. The network held even without his direct control. Humanity was awake and they would never go back to sleep. Young-Ho caught his captain as he fell. "Medical team to the bridge." "Did we win?" Deho whispered, looking at the tactical displays showing shadow wraiths retreating across the galaxy and the Omega entity fading from normal space. Young-Ho nodded. "We won, Captain. Humanity is free." Years later, Admiral Young-Ho stood on the observation deck of New Seoul Station, watching Earth's blue skies through the windows. The planet had healed quickly once the harvesting stations were destroyed. Cities were being rebuilt and children were learning about their history. In orbit around Earth, new Guardian stations stood ready to protect not just humanity, but any species threatened by cosmic darkness. The galaxy had learned that some threats required more than weapons to defeat. They required hope. Deho had survived the psychic link, though he was forever changed by the experience of connecting to every human mind. He now trained the next generation of Guardians, teaching them that their greatest weapon was not their enhanced abilities, but their capacity to inspire others. The Void Collective still existed, but they were different now. Freed from their dependence on harvested emotions, many had learned to coexist peacefully with humans. Supreme Overlord Nexavara had even established cultural exchange programs between their species. But the galaxy was still a dangerous place. Somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, the Omega entity waited for another chance to enter normal space. Other cosmic threats moved in the deep void, drawn by the light of living worlds. Humanity was ready for them. The Guardian protocols had awakened in their entire species, creating a network of courage and determination that spanned the galaxy. They were no longer just survivors or conquerors. They had become the guardians of hope itself, standing watch against the darkness that would always threaten the light between stars. Operation Homecoming began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time, across 47 worlds simultaneously. Deho watched from his command ship as human forces that had been secretly training for months launched their coordinated attack on Void Collective strongholds. The intelligence Minji had gathered during the alliance negotiations was proving invaluable. Every major military installation, every slave processing center, and every harvesting facility was marked on their tactical maps. Titan's Gate Assault Force reports successful landing, Young-ho announced from the communication station. He was now Admiral Young-ho, commanding the largest human fleet assembled in 8 centuries. Through the ship's displays, Deho could see battles raging across the galaxy. On the fortress world of Titan's Gate, Young-ho led 10,000 human soldiers against defenses that had been considered impregnable for hundreds of years. Andromeda approach vector secured. Sora's voice crackled over the communication system. She was coordinating the space battles with tactical brilliance that amazed even veteran Void Collective commanders. The Guardian protocols had awakened in millions of humans across the galaxy. Farmers became soldiers, miners became pilots, and servants became strategists. The genetic memories of 800 years ago were flowing through their blood. But the most remarkable development was Yunji's breakthrough with hybrid technology. Working in secret laboratories, she had combined human innovation with captured Void Collective equipment to create weapons that were superior to both. The pulse rifles are working perfectly, she reported from the research station. Human creativity combined with alien manufacturing capabilities. We're outgunning them with their own technology. The liberation was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. World after world fell to human forces as the Guardian protocols turned ordinary people into extraordinary warriors. The Void Collective's empire was crumbling, but Supreme Overlord Nexavara was not standing idle. From her command ship, she coordinated her remaining forces while trying to understand how humanity had become so powerful so quickly. These are not the same slaves we conquered 800 years ago, she told her war council. They fight with a coordination that suggests genetic enhancement. He-Jin, still hunting Deho despite the official alliance, had begun to understand the truth. They were never just slaves, she reported. We enslaved them because we feared them, and we were right to be afraid. As human forces pushed deeper into Void Collective territory, they discovered the true horror of the harvesting stations. Billions of humans had been kept in artificial environments designed to maximize their despair and fear. Jinwoo led the assault on Processing Center Alpha, the largest facility in the core worlds. What he found there made his blood run cold. Entire cities of humans lived in darkness, their emotional energy being drained to power Void Collective technology. We're freeing them as fast as we can, he reported to Deho. But Captain, you need to see this. The tactical display showed something that changed everything. Earth itself had been converted into a massive harvesting station. The planet's population was being kept in a state of perpetual despair to feed the Collective's most important projects. That's why the Shadow Wraiths are heading straight for Earth, Arya realized. The concentrated negative emotions are calling to them like a beacon. Dr. Wansik's voice came through the communication system from his research facility. It's worse than that. They're using Earth's harvested despair to summon something from the dark dimension, something much larger than the Shadow Wraiths we've seen. Deho felt a chill of recognition. The Omega entity, the ancient darkness that existed before the first stars were born. The Guardian Corps had found references to it in the oldest human records, warnings left by civilizations that no longer existed. How long before it manifests? He asked. Based on the energy readings, perhaps 6 hours. The liberation of human colonies would mean nothing if the Omega entity succeeded in entering their dimension. It was a creature of pure hunger that devoured hope itself, leaving entire regions of space as voids of absolute despair. All forces, new priority target, Deho announced on the fleet-wide channel. We're going to Earth. The combined human fleet that approached Earth's solar system was the largest military force humanity had assembled since the First War. Thousands of ships carried millions of newly awakened warriors, all focused on saving their birth world. But they were not alone. Shadow wraiths filled the space around Earth like a living darkness, feeding on the planet's harvested despair, and at the center of the swarm something vast and terrible was beginning to take shape. The Omega entity is manifesting, Dr. Wansik reported with fear in his voice. Its presence is already affecting nearby star systems. Young Ho's tactical analysis was grim. We can't fight it with conventional weapons. The shadow wraiths are bad enough, but this thing exists outside normal space-time. Yunji had been working frantically on a solution. Captain, I've been analyzing the psychic field that humans generate when fighting with courage and determination. If we could amplify it somehow, the Guardian protocols, Deho realized. Not just individual activation, but connecting every human in the galaxy simultaneously. Arya began calculations. The quantum entanglement networks built into Guardian DNA could create a galaxy-wide psychic link. But the energy requirements would be enormous. What kind of energy? Sora asked. Life force, Arya replied quietly. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves to power the network. Deho looked at Earth hanging in space ahead of them, dark tentacles of shadow reaching toward it from the forming Omega entity. Billions of humans on the planet below were trapped in artificial despair, their suffering feeding the very darkness that threatened to destroy the galaxy. There's another way, he said finally. If I link my consciousness to every human through the Guardian network, the combined will of our entire species. You'll burn out your brain, Jinwoo protested. The psychic feedback will kill you. Maybe. But if it works, every human in the galaxy will experience the awakening simultaneously. Can you imagine what that much concentrated courage and determination will do to entities that feed on despair? Taesung's voice came over the communication system from New Gangwon. Captain, we've been monitoring the shadow wraith movements. They're already starting to retreat from systems where humans are fighting with hope instead of fear. The old farmer had become a symbol of human resistance, his simple courage inspiring millions of people across the galaxy. If your plan works, Young Ho said slowly, we won't just drive back the shadow wraiths. We'll liberate every human soul at once. Minji, monitoring Void Collective Communications, brought urgent news. Supreme Overlord Nexavara is ordering all remaining forces to retreat to their homeworld. They're abandoning Earth to the shadow wraiths. Then it's up to us, Deho said. Arya, begin preparation for the Guardian Protocol link. All ships, prepare for assault on Earth. As the human fleet moved toward their birth world, now shrouded in living darkness, every person aboard felt the same sensation. The Guardian protocols were not just activating individually anymore. They were connecting, linking millions of human minds in a network of shared courage and determination. The final battle for Earth, and the soul of humanity, was about to begin. The message came on all frequencies, broadcasting across the galaxy in dozens of languages. Even Deho was surprised when Arya decoded it on his ship's communication system. This is Supreme Overlord Nexavara of the Void Collective. We request immediate ceasefire negotiations with human resistance forces. The Shadow Wraith threat requires our combined response. Jinwoo, who was studying tactical displays in the ship's command center, looked up in shock. It's a trap. It has to be. Maybe, Deho replied, watching the same message repeat on different channels. But desperate enemies sometimes tell the truth. The battle for New Gangwon had ended 3 weeks ago, with humanity's first real victory in 8 centuries. Heejin's forces had retreated after losing half their ships to farmers who fought like professional soldiers. Word of the victory was spreading to human communities everywhere. But the Shadow Wraiths had consumed 6 more star systems in the same time period. Their hunger was growing, and they were moving faster toward the galaxy's populated center. Captain, Arya interrupted their discussion. I'm receiving a priority transmission from Nexus Prime. It's addressed to you personally. The hologram that appeared was not what Deho expected. Supreme Overlord Nexavara was tall and elegant with pale blue skin and silver hair. She looked tired and worried, not like the confident conqueror he had imagined. Guardian Deho, she said formally. I am requesting a face-to-face meeting on neutral ground. The survival of our galaxy may depend on our cooperation. Young Ho, who had been promoted to tactical officer after his performance on New Gangwon, studied the alien leader carefully. She's scared. Really scared. The Shadow Wraiths have consumed 40% of our territory, Nexavara continued. Our weapons cannot harm them. Our shields cannot stop them. We need humanity's help. Sora looked at the star charts showing shadow wraith movements. They're heading straight for the core worlds. If they reach the galactic center, they'll have access to billions of populated systems. Daiho made a decision that surprised everyone. Tell her I'll meet with her. But it has to be on a human world, with human security. 3 days later, his ship arrived at the mining world of Ceres Station, now under human control after a successful rebellion. The station's administrator, a former slave named Minji, had helped coordinate the uprising from within. Minji was young and brilliant, serving as both interpreter and intelligence coordinator. She had been forced to work for the Void Collective for years, but had secretly been building networks of human informants across their territory. The aliens are really desperate, she reported to Daiho. My sources say they've lost contact with dozens of worlds. The shadow wraiths are moving faster than anyone expected. When Nexavara's ship arrived, it was escorted by human fighters. The Supreme Overlord herself came aboard Ceres Station with only a small guard force, showing unprecedented trust. The meeting took place in the station's main conference room. Nexavara sat across from Daiho, with Jinwoo, Youngho, and Minji representing humanity's interests. For 800 years, our species have been enemies, Nexavara began. But now we face something that threatens all life in the galaxy. She activated a holographic display showing the shadow wraith's path of destruction. Entire solar systems had been reduced to empty space with no trace of planets, stars, or life. We understand now that our harvesting of emotional energy weakened the barriers between dimensions, she admitted. The despair we collected from your people opened doorways that should have remained closed. Dr. Wansik, a human scientist who had been forced to work for the collective, joined the meeting via hologram. He had been studying the shadow wraiths for months. The entities exist partially outside normal spacetime, he explained. They feed on negative emotions, but positive emotions actually repel them. Human courage and determination create a psychic field they cannot penetrate. That's why they avoid systems where humans are actively fighting, Minji added. Every successful rebellion creates a protective zone around that world. Nexavara leaned forward. We propose a formal alliance. We will free all human slaves and return Earth to your control. In exchange, your people help us fight the shadow wraiths. Youngho spoke up. How do we know you won't betray us once the threat is over? Because if we fail to stop them, there won't be anything left to betray, Nexavara replied simply. The negotiations continued for hours. Maps were drawn, territories discussed, and terms agreed upon. But Daiho had his own secret agenda. The alliance would give humanity access to Void Collective resources and intelligence. Information they could use for their own purposes. The talks were interrupted when alarms began screaming throughout the station. The shadow wraiths had found Ceres Station and were attacking directly. Through the station's windows, everyone could see the approaching darkness. It was not empty space, but something actively hungry that consumed light itself. The entities moved like living shadows, flowing around asteroids and reaching toward the station with tentacles of pure darkness. All ships, engage the enemy, Youngho commanded over the communication system. Human fighters swarmed out to meet the shadow wraiths, but their weapons had no effect. Plasma bolts and missiles passed through the entities without causing damage. The station's shields are failing, Minji reported. They're draining our power directly. Daiho felt the familiar sensation of the Guardian protocols activating in his blood. Around him, other humans were experiencing the same awakening, but this time was different. The enhancement was stronger, more focused. Everyone stay calm, he ordered. Fear feeds them. Courage starves them. As the humans in the station focused on hope instead of terror, something remarkable happened. The shadow wraiths began to slow down, their movements becoming sluggish and uncertain. Nexavara watched in amazement as the darkness around the station started to retreat. Your emotions are actually pushing them away. Not just our emotions, Sora realized. Our determination to survive and protect others. The shadow wraiths withdrew from Ceres Station, but their presence had left the surrounding space cold and empty. Several asteroids had been completely drained of matter and energy. In the aftermath of the attack, the alliance between humans and the Void Collective was formally signed. But Daiho knew it was only a temporary partnership. Once the shadow wraiths were defeated, the real test would begin. We need to move quickly, he told his inner circle. Use this alliance to gather intelligence and build our strength. When the time comes, we'll be ready to finish what we started 800 years ago. Minji had already begun her work, using her position as interpreter to access void collective databases. The information she was gathering would be crucial for humanity's ultimate victory. Their military positions, ship production facilities, and command structures, she reported. I'm downloading everything. Young-ho studied the tactical situation. If we can coordinate simultaneous strikes across their territory, while they're distracted by the shadow wraiths, then we can liberate every human colony at once. Jinwoo finished. Nexavara departed Ceres Station believing she had gained a valuable ally. But she had actually given humanity the tools they needed to destroy her empire. The shadow wraiths continued their advance toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. But now they faced something they had never encountered before, a species that grew stronger when threatened, and whose courage could literally push back the darkness. The alliance was formed, but the real war was just beginning. The agricultural world of New Gangwon looked peaceful from space. Green fields stretched to the horizon under a yellow sun, but Daeho knew that even here, humans lived as slaves, growing food for their alien masters. His ship landed in a remote valley where Jinwoo's contacts had promised to meet them. 3 months had passed since the Sigma-7 escape, and word of the Guardian's return was spreading across human communities. An old farmer emerged from the tall grass, moving carefully but with dignity. His weathered face showed both hope and caution. "You are the one they call the Guardian?" the farmer asked. "I am Daeho, and you are?" "Taesung, I have been waiting for someone like you for 60 years. Taesung led them to his farm hidden in the valley. It looked ordinary, but Arya's scanners detected energy signatures beneath the ground. "My grandfather told me stories," Taesung explained as they walked. "Stories about the time before when humans fought as equals against any enemy." Inside his simple house, the old farmer pressed a hidden switch. The floor opened to reveal stairs leading down into darkness. "I have kept the faith," he said with pride. The underground chamber took Daeho's breath away. Weapons from the old Guardian Corps lined the walls. Plasma rifles, combat armor, and tactical equipment that had been hidden for 8 centuries. "My family swore an oath," Taesung continued, "to keep these ready for the day humanity would fight again." Jinwoo and Sora stared at the weapons in amazement. They had never seen military equipment this advanced. Even the Void Collective's technology was not much better. "There are caches like this on 12 worlds," Taesung said, "hidden by families who never forgot who we are." A young man came down the stairs carrying a food tray. He moved with the same quiet dignity as his grandfather. "This is Young-ho, my grandson," Taesung said. "He has been waiting to learn the old ways." Daeho studied the young man. Young-ho was strong and intelligent, with eyes that showed both curiosity and determination. Something in his stance reminded Daeho of the Guardian recruits from long ago. "Are you ready to fight for humanity's freedom?" Daeho asked. "I have been ready my whole life," Young-ho replied. Over the following weeks, Daeho began training a new generation of human warriors. Using the hidden weapons cache, he taught Jinwoo, Sora, Young-ho, and dozens of others the military skills their ancestors had known. But something unexpected happened during the training. As the humans pushed themselves to their limits, their bodies began to change. They moved faster, thought more clearly, and reacted with incredible speed. "The Guardian protocols are activating," Arya explained to Daeho. "Genetic sequences locked in human DNA for 800 years. Your presence is triggering their awakening." The protocols were humanity's greatest secret. During the first war against the Void Collective, human scientists had discovered that extreme stress could unlock hidden potential in human genetics. The Guardian Corps had been the first to benefit from these enhancements. Now, as more humans chose to fight rather than accept slavery, the same abilities were awakening across the galaxy. Young-ho proved to be exceptional. Within days, he was moving like a veteran soldier. His tactical thinking rivaled experienced commanders. Other humans began looking to him for leadership. "He has the gift," Taesung said proudly. "The old blood runs strong in our family." But the training was interrupted by terrible news. Arya received transmissions from across the galaxy about the shadow wraiths. Entire sectors were going dark as the entities consumed star system after star system. "They're not just destroying planets," Arya reported. "They're absorbing the life force itself. Every world they touch becomes completely lifeless. Even worse, the shadow wraiths seem to be following a pattern. They were moving toward systems with large human populations, drawn by the concentrated despair of enslaved communities. Yunji, a brilliant engineer who had joined them from another rescued colony, made a disturbing discovery while studying captured Void Collective technology. Their harvesting machines are designed to collect negative emotions, she explained. Fear, despair, hopelessness. These feelings have actual energy that the aliens use to power their technology. That's why they keep humans alive, Sora realized. We're not just workers, we're batteries. The revelation changed everything. The Void Collective had not conquered humanity for labor or resources. They had enslaved entire populations to feed on their suffering. And now that suffering has opened a door for something much worse, Deho said grimly. Reports came in of shadow, wraith attacks on Void Collective worlds. The aliens were losing badly. Their biotechnology was useless against entities that existed partially outside normal space-time. Heejin, the war commander from Sigma-7, had survived their battle and was now hunting Deho across the galaxy. Her forces had tracked several escaped human groups and destroyed them without mercy. But something was changing in how humans fought back. Communities that had never resisted before were suddenly organizing rebellions. The Guardian protocols were spreading from person to person, awakening in humans who had never even met Daiho. It's like a virus, Yunji observed. But instead of disease, it spreads courage. On New Gangwon, Taesung gathered the regional resistance leaders for a secret meeting. Over 300 humans attended, representing farming communities across the planet. The time for hiding is over, the old farmer declared. Our ancestors died fighting for freedom. We will live fighting for it. Deho addressed the assembled rebels. The Void Collective fears you. That's why they enslaved you instead of destroying you. They know that humans are dangerous when united. He explained the larger situation, the shadow wraiths, the dimensional barriers, and humanity's unique resistance to cosmic horror. We are not just fighting for our own freedom, he told them. We are fighting to save the galaxy from something that wants to destroy all life. Young Ho stepped forward. What do you need us to do? Learn to fight. Train others. Spread the awakening to every human community you can reach. Deho looked at each face in the crowd. And remember, you are not slaves. You are the children of warriors. The meeting was interrupted by alarms. Heijin's fleet had found New Gangwon. Void Collective ships were entering the atmosphere, ready to destroy the rebellion before it could spread. But this time, the humans were ready. Hidden weapon caches opened across the planet as farmers picked up plasma rifles their grandparents had saved. The Guardian protocols activated in hundreds of humans simultaneously. The battle for New Gangwon would be humanity's first real test. Could enslaved farmers become warriors? Could scattered rebels become an army? As Heijin's ships descended through the clouds spitting death from the sky, Deho felt something he had not experienced in 800 years. Hope. The humans below were not running or hiding. They were standing their ground, ready to fight for something greater than themselves. The real war for humanity's freedom was about to begin. The asteroid mining colony Sigma-7 hung in space like a metal spider. Thousands of humans worked in its tunnels, digging precious metals for their alien masters. Deho's ship approached slowly, hidden among the supply vessels that came and went each day. He had been watching the colony for 3 days, learning its patterns. Guard ships patrolled every 6 hours. Work shifts changed twice daily. The humans lived in crowded barracks while their overseers enjoyed comfortable quarters in the colony's center. Arya spoke quietly through his earpiece. Captain, I count 12,000 humans on this facility. Most have been here for generations. Deho studied the security systems through his ship's scanners. Any signs of resistance? Energy readings suggest some humans are using hidden communication networks. There may be organized groups among them. The captain smiled grimly. Even after 800 years of slavery, humans still fought back. It was in their nature. He docked his ship in the cargo bay and walked out dressed as a supply worker. His enhanced senses picked up the sounds of human voices speaking in whispers. Fear and despair hung in the air like a heavy cloud, but underneath it was something else. Anger. In the main tunnel, hundreds of humans worked with mining tools. They were thin and tired, but their eyes still held spirit. Deho noticed how they moved in groups, watching out for each other, protecting the weak ones. A young man with strong shoulders was organizing workers near the tunnel entrance. He moved with military precision, giving quiet orders that the others followed without question. This had to be a resistance leader. "You there," called a voice behind Daeho. He turned to see a human woman in administrator clothes. She was well-fed and clean, clearly working for the aliens. "I haven't seen you before." "New supply worker," Daeho said calmly. "Just transferred from the outer colonies." The woman studied him with sharp eyes. Her name tag read Kyung Min, Colony Administrator. She had the confidence of someone used to giving orders. "Report to Section Chief Hyejin for assignment," she said. "And remember, cooperation ensures survival." Daeho nodded and walked away. So some humans had chosen to serve their masters. That complicated things, but every war had collaborators. He found the young resistance leader during the lunch break. The man was sitting with 5 others, speaking in code words about work schedules. But Daeho understood what they were really discussing: guard rotations and escape routes. "Mind if I sit?" Daeho asked. The group looked up suspiciously. The leader studied Daeho's face for a long moment. "You're not from here." "No, I'm from Earth." The words hit the group like lightning. One older woman gasped. A young man leaned forward eagerly. "Earth still exists?" the leader asked quietly. "It exists, but it's enslaved like everywhere else." Daeho looked around to make sure no guards were listening. "My name is Daeho. I'm here to change that." The leader's eyes widened. He had heard that name before, in old stories passed down through generations. "The Guardian Corps? You know the stories? My family has kept them alive for 800 years. I'm Jinwoo, descendant of the Seoul Defense Force." Jinwoo quickly introduced the others. There was Sora, a brilliant young fighter who planned most of their operations. Taemin, an engineer who understood the colony's systems. Old Myung-hee, who remembered stories from before the conquest. "How many are in your group?" Daeho asked. "Here on Sigma-7, about 300 active resistance members. But we have contacts on dozens of other colonies." "What about weapons?" "We make tools into weapons. Hide plasma cutters and explosives. But we don't have military equipment," Daeho smiled. "That's about to change." Over the next few days, he worked with Jinwoo's group to plan a massive escape. But they faced a dangerous enemy. Section Chief Hyejin was not human. She was a Void Collective war commander who had destroyed human rebellions before. Hyejin was tall and deadly, with purple skin and 4 arms that moved like lightning. Her reputation for crushing resistance was known throughout the colonies. She ruled through fear and overwhelming force. The aliens had also placed collaborators like Kyung Min in positions of power. These humans believed that serving the Void Collective was the only way to survive. They reported any suspicious activity to their alien masters. On the 4th night, Daeho met with Jinwoo's full resistance network. They gathered in an abandoned mining tunnel away from surveillance cameras. "We can't just escape," Sora argued. "If we run, they'll hunt us down and kill us." "She's right," agreed Taemin. "We need to strike hard and fast, then scatter in different directions." Daeho stood before the group of 300 rebels. They looked at him with hope and fear. These people had never known freedom, but they dreamed of it. 800 years ago, your ancestors fought against impossible odds," he told them. "They lost that war, but they never surrendered. You carry their courage in your blood." He began to explain the Guardian protocols, genetic memories locked in human DNA that activated during extreme danger. As he spoke, he could see something awakening in their eyes. "Tomorrow during the shift change, we take the colony," Daeho announced. "All of it." Arya had been busy too, hacking the colony's systems and preparing Daeho's ship for a major evacuation. But she brought troubling news. "Captain, long-range sensors detect shadow wraith movement. They consumed the industrial world of Kepler 442b yesterday. Their influence is spreading faster than expected." The plan began at dawn. Jinwoo's people took control of the communication systems while Sora led teams to capture the guard posts. Taemin shut down the security barriers that kept humans locked in their sections. Daeho went after Hyejin personally. He found her in the command center, coordinating defenses with her alien soldiers. "So the mysterious Guardian finally shows himself," she said, drawing 2 plasma swords with her forearms. The battle was fierce. Hyejin was fast and experienced, but Daeho had training from before humanity's defeat. His enhanced reflexes and combat skills gave him the edge he needed. When the war commander fell, the remaining aliens surrendered or fled. But Kyung Min activated a distress beacon before the humans could stop her. "Void Collective reinforcements will be here in hours," Arya warned. The escape was chaotic but successful. Over 10,000 humans crowded into stolen ships and fled the colony. They scattered across space in dozens of different directions, making it impossible for the aliens to track them all. But as they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Daeho knew this was just the beginning. Word of the rebellion would spread to other colonies. The Void Collective would increase security everywhere. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Shadow Wraiths felt the emotions of 10,000 humans, choosing hope over fear. The taste disgusted them. They began moving faster toward the galaxy, hungry to destroy this source of light. "Where do we go now?" Jinwoo asked as their ship raced through space. Daeho looked at the tactical display showing human colonies across the galaxy. "Everywhere. We wake up every human we can find. We remind them who they are." Sora checked their weapons inventory. "We'll need more than inspiration. We need an army. Then we'll build one," Daeho said, "one colony at a time." The cold metal chamber began to warm as ancient machines came to life deep beneath Mount Paektu. Red lights flashed in the darkness and a voice spoke in the empty halls. Emergency protocol activated. Guardian awakening sequence initiated. Inside the stasis pod, Captain Daeho's eyes opened for the first time in 1,200 years. The thick liquid around him drained away as the pod opened with a loud hiss. He gasped and coughed, his lungs burning as they filled with air again. Daeho stepped out on shaky legs. His body felt strange but strong. The bio-enhancements in his blood were still working, keeping him young and powerful even after so much time. He looked around the facility he had not seen since the year 1647. "Welcome back, Captain," said a woman's voice. A blue hologram appeared in front of him. She looked like Dr. Mi-young, the scientist who had created this place. "Arya?" Daeho asked. His voice was rough from the long sleep. "Yes, Captain. I am the AI copy of Dr. Mi-young. I have been waiting for you to wake up." Daeho walked to a wall screen that showed the surface above. His heart sank. The beautiful Korean mountains he remembered were gone. Strange purple buildings covered the land. Alien ships flew in the sky like metal insects. "What happened to Earth?" he asked. Arya's face became sad. "The Void Collective conquered our planet 800 years ago. They have enslaved humanity. Most humans now work in space colonies, mining resources for their masters." Daeho felt anger rising in his chest. "How many humans are left?" "On Earth, only 50 million remain as servants. In space, perhaps 2 billion humans work as slaves across the galaxy." The captain walked to an equipment room and began putting on his black armor. It still fit perfectly. The Guardian Corps had been created to protect humanity from alien threats. He had failed in his duty by sleeping so long. "Why did I wake up now?" he asked as he checked his weapons. The sensors detected massive energy readings approaching our galaxy, something called the Shadow Wraiths. The Void Collective accidentally released them from dark space while draining planetary life forces. Arya showed him images that made his blood run cold. Entire star systems had turned black. Planets became empty rocks floating in space. The Shadow Wraiths consumed everything: matter, energy, and even hope itself. "These creatures feed on despair," Arya explained. "The Void Collective has been harvesting negative emotions from enslaved populations for centuries. This weakened the barriers that kept the Shadow Wraiths locked away." Daeho strapped on his plasma rifle and checked his combat knife. "How long before they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, perhaps 6 months. But Captain, there is something else you must know." The AI's image flickered. "You were not just a Guardian. You were part of Project Prometheus, humanity's final weapon against cosmic threats. Your DNA contains protocols that can awaken something in all humans." Before Daeho could ask more questions, alarms began screaming. The walls shook as explosions echoed from above. "Void Collective forces have detected your awakening," Arya said quickly. "You must escape now." Daeho ran through the corridors as the ceiling began to collapse. He reached the hidden hangar where an old human warship waited. The ship was small but fast, designed for stealth missions. As he started the engines, Void Collective soldiers broke into the facility. They were tall creatures with purple skin and 4 arms. Their leader spoke into a communication device. "Commander Rakthul, we found an ancient human facility. Someone was here, but they escaped in a ship." Daeho's ship burst from the underground hangar and flew into space. Behind him, the mountain exploded as the aliens destroyed the facility. Arya's voice came through the ship's speakers. "I transferred my data to the ship before the destruction. Captain, where will you go?" Daeho looked at the star charts on his screen. To find our people. If humans are enslaved across the galaxy, then some must still remember who they are. The Outer Rim territories have the largest slave populations, mining colonies on asteroids and moons. Then that's where we start. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Daeho thought about his mission. He had slept while his people suffered. He had failed to protect Earth, but he was awake now and he would not fail again. The Guardian Corps motto came back to him. We are the sword and shield of humanity. We fight so others may live free. Looking at the stars ahead, Daeho made a promise. He would wake up every human in the galaxy. He would remind them that they were not slaves, but warriors. The Void Collective had ruled through fear for 800 years. It was time to show them what humans could do when they fought back. Arya interrupted his thoughts. Captain, I'm detecting Void Collective patrol ships ahead. Good, Daeho said, charging his weapons. Let's remind them why they feared us enough to enslave us instead of destroying us. The first battle of humanity's second war for freedom was about to begin. But this time they were not just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for every human soul scattered across the stars. In the darkness between galaxies, the Shadow Wraiths sensed the awakening of something they had not felt in millions of years. A species that fought with hope instead of fear. A species that grew stronger when threatened. They began to move faster toward the galaxy, hungry to taste this new emotion and destroy it before it could spread. But they did not know that hope, once awakened, was very hard to kill. Daeho gripped the controls of his ship and flew toward the first slave colony. Behind him, Earth grew smaller in the distance. Ahead of him, 2 billion enslaved humans waited for someone to remind them that they were free. The Guardian had awakened. The real war was just beginning.